Yesterday I did something that, I don't know that anybody will be upset about it, but I did step outside the bounds, so to speak. I did take some action that nobody else was taking that I believe was very important to be taken because it affects me and my property value, but I didn't get consent before I took the action. And I wonder how many leaders have taken action when action is required. It's all but demanded that action be taken, and no action is being taken. No one's actually doing anything, no activity where action needs to be taken. How many leaders will jump out there and take the initiative to take the action that needs to be taken? Is that you? Are you one of those people? I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and I understand that sometimes the limitations of abilities or the limitations of capabilities or competence or even finance could prevent action that should be taken from being taken. Maybe it's just not in the budget. Maybe the opportunity's there. Maybe it's incompetence or a lack of understanding. Maybe the action that should be taken, nobody identifies needs to be taken except a rare few. Well, let me tell the real story about what actually happened, and maybe it'll make more sense to you. So yesterday I was down on my hands and knees in my front yard pulling up dandelions and other forms of clover and weeds and crabgrass out of my St. Augustine grass that we recently sodded, front, back, sides, all the way around the house. It was beautiful. Last year in the spring it was gorgeous and green and soft and always cold, and you could walk on it barefoot, and it was beautiful. And by the end of the summer, I'd begin to see these dandelions and milkweeds and other nasty things popping up all over the yard, front, back, sides, everywhere. And I couldn't figure out exactly why, besides the fact that we live in Texas, right in the edge of the Gulf Stream where the wind is always blowing weird crap in. But then I got to looking really close, and both of my neighbors on both sides of my house have weed-infested lawns. In fact, on one particular side of my house, their lawn would never be green if not for the weeds. There's no grass in their yard. It's dirt and it's weeds, and that's it. Dirt and weeds. On the other side, well, they've got some bald spots, but when the sod was laid, I told the lady, if you just water the dickens out of it, this particular sod will grow in strands, and it will fill the void where your dead grass is, where it's just dirt, and it will actually become the same kind of lawn that we've just sodded, and save you the expense of sodding. Just keep watering it. Put a little fertilizer down, kill the weeds, and just keep watering it. Well, the watering kind of happened, but the weed killing didn't. And so instead, I have clover all over the side of my house, and dandelions all over the other side, and milkweed growing in the back. And it's insane the number of weeds that I have in my yard when I'm the only one on the block that crawls around on my hands and knees and pulls them up from the ground by their roots to get rid of them and make sure they don't come back. Now, I'm not saying my neighbors never try to take care of their weeds. I'm just saying if they are, they're not doing a very good job of it. And that's not an accusation, and it's really not even a judgment. It's just an observation. But the question is, for how long do I cope with their weeds in my yard, their weeds expanding their growth into my yard, their weeds killing my grass, growing up the side of my house, before I take action against their weeds? So yesterday, after I pulled all the weeds in my yard, and I tried to get as many out by the roots as I possibly could, digging my fingers all the way down into the dirt to the nubs of the root, trying to pull them out before they could take root somewhere else, putting them all in a lawn bag to make sure they die, instead of just piling them up on the curb to blow down the street into somebody else's lawn. After I finished that, I took the weed and feed fertilizer that goes on the end of the hose, and I drenched my yard with it. Front, sides, all the way down, curb to the back of the house. And I had some left over. So yes, I did. I took action where I felt like action was needed and no one was taking it. I soaked the neighbors' side yards on both sides, all the way up to the edge of their house. I soaked their weeds to death with some good weed and feed, kill the weeds, grow the grass kind of fertilizer. Now, I'm hoping that my beautiful St. Augustine grass will grow right through the weed valley and up to the edge of their house so that we'll have nice grass valleys between each house. I'm hoping that it will take over their lawn and help them with the overcoming of weeds, because when it's watered well, St. Augustine will do that. But I also realize there are those people in the world who do not care what kind of grass they have in the yard, and that they might see my St. Augustine spreading itself out as, I don't know, proselytization. They might see it as me taking advantage of the knowledge of how to grow some grass as a privilege of some sort. Just because you have that kind of grass, you can't spread it all over the neighborhood. They might see that, I don't know, maybe they like the weeds they're growing in their yard. And me fertilizing them to death is, I don't know, weedicide? Is that a word? I do know, though, that whether you're talking about thoughts, ideas, politics, or the world of finance, the reality remains the same. You can take great care of your space, and if you ignore the space around you, if you ignore the activity of the people around you, if you're not asking whether it's friends, family, neighbors, cohorts, co-workers, if you're not asking how is their action or inaction influencing my leadership, my organization, my personal life, then the chances are the answer is badly. Because if you're not doing it intentionally, then unintentionally is probably going to lead to unintended consequences. I'm just saying. If I continue to pull the weeds out of my lawn with the most meticulous care you could possibly imagine and fertilize my lawn the best that I possibly could, there will still be weed seeds flying in the wind, kicked across by the kids, run through by the dogs, that will track their weeds into my grass and kill my grass and make my grass look terrible, even after all the effort that I put in. And so it is with the mindset of your neighbors. So it is the mindset of your family. So it is with the mindset of society. If you're not willing to kill the weeds around you, all the plucking of the weeds in your own mind will lead to nothing. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and